Good morning, everybody. We're going to talk about southern pine beetle monitoring and detection and notification for landowners. The previous speaker said that southern pine beetles aren't going anywhere. I wish he meant that literally, but we know that southern pine beetles are going to go somewhere, and they're on the move. And we're the agency that monitors those and detects where they are and notifies landowners. I'm going to talk a little bit about the notification, the monitoring and detection and notification part of our program, and then Dana's going to follow up and tell you what's going on with southern pine beetle right now and what our predictions for 2019 are. This is a little beetle. If you've never had it on your property, it's not very big, about 1/8 of an inch in length. Black turpentine, or it's like a black beetle. But on an epidemic year, this thing can do some major damage. We estimate in an epidemic year it can do 40 times more damage than one of our big wildfire years. So it's a really destructive little critter. Let's see if I've got the right. There we go. Okay, so infestations are easily located from the airplane. So that's how we monitor and detect the southern pine beetle. And we've been doing this as long as I've been here, probably 30 plus years. And there's been a whole lot of changes in the processes that we've used to do this. But we use the airplane for not only southern pine beetle, but also other insects and disease. To me, it's probably one of our most beneficial programs that we provide to landowners. We are your insurance policy against insects and disease. Just want to go back in time a little bit and talk a little bit about how we've progressed over the years and how we've gotten much better at locating these critters on the ground. When I started back in the 90s, we were flying in an airplane and all we had was like a county road map. You can imagine flying at 100 miles an hour, trying to keep up with where you are, as well as trying to put a dot on the map of where you think the southern pine beetle is, when you really can't see the forest stands out there, was not very accurate. But that's the best we had for years. And then we got smarter and we started using aerial photography. So the first set of aerial photography were 8x8 sheets. We had about 40 of these for every county. And so we're in the airplane moving along and still trying to flip and find the right photograph and also try to keep where you were in place. Then we moved to a larger set. And you can imagine in an airplane, in a cramped airplane, flipping through these. And what we would do, we'd have our flight lines already mapped out. And then we'd have to flip these and keep track of where we were. And then we'd mark the spot with a grease pencil. So we did that for a while. The one story that I'll tell today is one time my plane ran out of gas.
You're really freaking big.
And I was in the front seat and the pilot said, brace for impact. He had to start the engine back up after he flipped it to the reserve tank. I guess he was not really paying attention to the fuel gauge too much, but I used this to brace myself for impact. That was one of those days that you just go home and just like, I'm too glad to be alive. The next thing we did was we went to GPS tracking devices. And we had GPS receivers in the plane, and we would fly over, the spotters would spot the beetle and say, hey, pilot, fly over here, and they'd turn back, and we'd get right over the spot and push the button, and that's how we mark the spots. Well, you can imagine the spotters that we had, kind of the number of those people dropped out really fast because a lot of people can't do that turn into the airplane, and it's also a lot of wear and tear on our airplanes. So we finally gone to a system that we're using today, which I feel like is a really accurate and precise system, and we're using a GPS or GIS mapping system. I think the future is that we'll probably be using satellite imagery pretty soon. They're doing research on that, and we may not even have to fly anymore. This is what the view looks like from around 2,000 feet. We fly between 1,500 and 2,500 feet. At that height, you can look at about a mile on both sides of the airplane. So that's sort of a view that we get. We fly every summer. If we have to, we'll fly 2 flights per county. We start around mid-May, and we have the first flight May, June, July, and then we do a second flight if we need to, August, September. We don't typically fly every county in the state. We do some reconnaissance ahead of time and decide which counties we've got beetle problems in, and then we fly those. This is what our new system, our new GIS mapping system looks like. It's an iPad, or it's a tablet, Android tablet is what we use, editor mapping and art collector. The beauty of this system is it's got the photographs right there with us, and the best thing about it is it tracks our path. We don't have to continue to try to figure out where we are. There'll be a dot in the middle of this map showing where the airplane is. And we usually have a spotter on the left and a spotter on the right. And we'll see something like this, and if you see a spot, like I've marked one here in red, to the left of the airport, and you can really get a lot more detail now with even marking a spot within a span. So when we give you all the Latin lines from these spots, you can be pretty sure that they're pretty accurate. What we do is we'll figure out it's a skip spot or a southern pine beetle spot. It's hard to detect from the air, but we make a guess on that, and then we put in the number of trees that we can quickly count for that spot. Of course, we're going 100 miles an hour, so if you got a lot of spots, it's a real rough estimate. We try to do our best on that. Some of the outputs that we get from this is, you can't see it very well, but the map on the left is the number of spots that we recorded for one county. But the more important map for you as landowners is what we send you in our notification letter, which is the spot map to the right. And it gives you the lat long, and it'll give you a blow-up of your stand. And you should be able to figure out where this thing is in the ground, or on the ground with that map. This is what one of our flight lines looks like. We drop breadcrumbs as we go through our flight process. So you can see there's some rhyme and reason to it, but a lot of times we'll change our flight pattern mid-flight. If we're not seeing beetles, or if we're seeing more beetles, we'll either skip an area or we'll make our flight lines even closer together. And you can see we've kind of done that here. Once we get back on the ground, our next process is to identify the landowner, so we can send them information on the spot that we detected. We use landowner maps, or we use the tax assessor maps. So this is a pretty lengthy process. It takes a lot of time to cross-reference the lat long with the ownership maps. The only thing we can get from these ownership maps is addresses, so we'd love to be able to call you and tell you right away that you've got a spot. But the next thing we've got to do is generate a letter. And so we've got a standard letter that we put out to landowners. Has anybody ever received one of these letters in here? Several of you have, yeah. Well, I'm sorry. The rest of you, everything's looking pretty good. Basically, the notification letter, if you get one, it tells you the lat long and our best guess how many number of trees we counted in the spot. And we really go from 10 to 20 to 40 to 60, and we jump up in 100, 150. we really can't get it much more detailed than that. We also, with each letter, we'll send you their span map and show you where it is on your map and the light lawn. And then we also send recommendations on how you control the spot. So we'll have another attachment for that. And then we'll give you a link of the vendors that you can try to contact to get somebody to come out and log the spot for you. And we leave it with, if you need additional help, just give us a call and we'll come out on the ground. And, we'll come out there and we'll find the spot for you and we'll flag it to the nearest road. That way you can take a logger right there to that area and they can find the spot themselves a lot easier. So we'll do that as a follow-up. The last thing I wanted to talk about is something new that we just created this last year. And this was at Lee McKell's suggestion. He had a great suggestion that we put this map of the active pine beetle spots on our website. And so we have done that, and I'm just going to talk you through how you can get to this. First of all, our website is forestry.alabama.gov. And to get to this, if you go back to that page for just a minute. Oh yeah, that's right, you were on it, I'm sorry. We'll have this link, this summer we'll have this link at the bottom of our main homepage website. But anytime you can go to the pull down menu at the top under Protect, and then under Protect there'll be Insects and Disease. You go to that and then pick up another tab that says Southern Pine Beetle Locator Map, and you'll come to this map here. This has all the spots in the state, and it's a pretty easy map to use. You can change the base map's color if you want from aerial photograph to just a white background. But it's kind of hard to detect, but you can see the spots there. And then all you have to do is use your mouse to zoom in to one of those spots, just like she's doing right there. And you should be able to zoom in far enough to see if the spot is on your property and a little bit. You should also get a notification letter, so that's how you can use that map. And I'm going to turn it over to Dana.
So I'm going to talk about what is a southern pine beetle infestation and the trends in Alabama. So what is a southern pine beetle infestation? Well, we know we have 3 different types of bark beetles in the southeast. The southern pine beetle, unfortunately, is the most aggressive, so it causes the most damage to pines. The female insect attacks the host tree first. So if the host tree is stressed or injured in any way, it has a chemical change in the sap that indicates that it is stressed, and the female southern pine beetle can detect that change, and she will attack that tree. If she can successfully attack that pine tree, she releases an aggregation pheromone to the other southern pine bark beetles that are in close vicinity of the tree. So males and female bark beetles come in and they mass attack the tree. So now you have a colony or several hundreds of southern pine beetles attacking this one tree. They will continue to build their population in this tree. The tree, of course, it tries to defend or ward off the attack. And in doing so, it tries to pitch out that southern pine beetle through the entrance hole. And what you see eventually are the pitch tubes along the main bole of the tree. So this is one particular tree symptom that you would notice if a tree is infested with a southern pine beetle. Another sign that you will notice is that once the beetles are in the tree, they create galleries. And these galleries are generally an S-shaped galleries, which is a little different from the other two bark beetles. But the southern pine beetle will create these S-shaped galleries, and if you pull back the bark, you will see some of these galleries that were created by the southern pine beetle. This is towards the end of the infestation, and this is something that you would notice if you have a beetle infestation in your pine stand. You see that the needles in the crown are turning brown and red, they're fading. You also notice some dead trees where the infestation first occurred. This is a picture that was taken from our drone that we have at the Forestry Commission. This was back in 2017, and I don't know if anybody remember that year. It was just a year and a half ago. We had a horrific year with southern pine beetles. It was a drought in the latter part of 2016 that caused the trees to be stressed, and we had a few counties that were at epidemic level. This was one that was very close to being at epidemic level, and you can see that this picture was taken in 2017 in Lowndes County. Overall, this was about 20 or 30 acres that were infested with southern pine beetles. So we talk about epidemic. We're going to talk about the trends. What causes an epidemic? Well, there are many factors. It's not just one factor. You have either some type of adverse climatic event, or the management regime of the stand, overstock stands, or if you have trees that are what we call overmature, they're more susceptible to beetle infestation, and also population level. So if the southern pine beetle population level in a particular area is high, you're going to have more of a chance of having a southern pine beetle infestation. You go back one. What we do in the southeast, all this southern states participate in a spring pheromone survey. We do this to try to determine the population level in the state. Every spring, usually starting late February, early March, when the southern pine beetles start to emerge from dormancy, we deploy traps throughout the state. Here, this is an example of a trap. And we select certain areas, and also the Forest Service deploy traps on the national forest. The trap mimics a stressed tree. And if you notice the blue sleeve on the trap, it is the resin or sap of the pine. So it has the chemical change and it is the resin of the pine tree. There is a brown patch you may not be able to notice very well, but it is attached on that trap as well. And that brown patch is the female pheromone. The southern pine beetles come to that trap and they fall into the collection cup. But also we have claret beetles, which is a predatory beetle of the southern pine beetle. They come into the trap as well. And every week we go out and we check this trap and we count the number of beetles, both southern pine beetle and claret beetles. And based on those numbers and the ratio between the two, we can determine what the population level will be and what the infestation might be for the current year. This is just a trend that we have, I want to show you over the last 6 or 7 years. And the pheromone survey is fairly accurate. It's only about 70% accurate. And here you notice that in 2013, 14, 15, it's saying that the infestation level will be low, but it's increasing. 2014 was a little off. It wasn't as accurate because it was low, but it was still increasing. That population level is constantly increasing, just slightly over the first few 3 or 4 years. And we were told that, southern pine beetle has a population cycle where it constantly increases and it'll drop, and it seemed that it's following a cycle. Then in 2017, we had a prediction of having a moderate amount of infestation and increasing, but it was pretty bad in 2017. This is the trend for the number of beetles that we've had, and you can see 2017, we had an extreme amount of beetle spots. So the survey was fairly accurate. And this is the map of what we had over the last 6 years. And you can see that there's a concentration in certain areas of the state. It's not scattered evenly throughout the state. And you can see at the bottom there's a graph where it shows a slight increase, and then with the combination of the beetle population increasing and the drought, it had a huge increase in 2017. And then last year it dropped, it decreased again. I'm not going to go into much detail about the control. We know that if you have a southern pine beetle infestation, the recommendation is to stop the spread. Either you implement a cut and leave or cut and remove. But this is just some costs of the value loss. If you have a 20-acre stand that is infested with southern pine beetles, the value approximately is going to be about $19,000 that is lost. But if you're going to implement a salvage operation and also restore that site, that's approximately the cost to do so is around $9,000. But if you have a return from the salvage, about 10 acres from the buffer area where the trees may be able, they're healthy enough to have a return, a value, and you receive a return, you may be able to receive $9,000 that will be needed for the restoration, for the salvage and restoration of that infested stand. And my final comment is that we hope that this year, based on the results that we've had this year, that we will have we have a low population of southern pine beetles, that we only have a few infestations this year. And that's it. We will notify you if you have any problems or any questions about problems on with your pine stand.